All right, Thursday night's game, we've got the Cowboys taking on the Giants. The Giants actually looks pretty good against their game against the Browns. Neighbors is going to be a star. Some of the catches he made were crazy. They made Daniel Jones look better than he was. Jones probably played as good as he was going to. Their defensive line looked good. The defense had 8 total sacks, which is the most in a decade for them. The biggest letdown for this game for the Giants is probably that they lack a good run game, which is the Cowboys' biggest weakness on defense. For the Cowboys fall short in their comeback against the Ravens. I expect a massive bounce back game for them. It's a must need. The defensive line, I expect it to be too much for Jones, to be honest. He's going to force some throws, and I expect a couple interceptions. So give me the Cowboys to win this one. Then we move to Sunday night games. First up, we've got the Saints taking on the Falcons. Both O-lines are pretty banged up. Both are missing their starting centers, and the Falcons also might be missing their right tackle. So I'm expecting this to be a sack fest, no Diddy. This is looking to be a defensive matchup on both ends. Both got great defensive backs. The Saints' offense struggled to get much going against the Eagles, but honestly, I'd pinpoint that a lot to McCoy going down on the first drive, as he calls a lot of their protection packages. The Falcons also fall short on their final drive to beat the Chiefs. I'm expecting this to be another close matchup. If the Saints can get an early lead, I expect them to just run the clock. Taysom Hill should also be back. Some big divisional rival matchup right here. I got to take my Saints winning this one. Next up, we've got the Rams taking on the Bears. The Rams somehow pulled out a win. Don't know how, with the amount of injuries they have. Coming back 14-0, really impressive stuff. Atwell had a massive game for them. Stafford, biggest team leader for them. The Bears, on the other hand, still really struggling to run the ball, and their O-line is just ugly. It's like they want Williams to get hit. I think Stafford and his experience will be too big this game. So give me the Rams to win this. And then next up, we've got the Vikings taking on the Packers. The Vikings this year have got to be the surprise team of the year so far. Their defense is amazing. They held the Texans to only 7 points. And to me, the Texans, with all their weapons, they've got to be a top 5 offense. They're really yet to show it this year, though. Sam Darnold is actually impressive, I must say. Never thought I would say that. The Packers, on the other hand, the Packers have managed to pull out another win without Love and keep proving me wrong. Malik Willis actually threw the ball, but their defense has just looked really good. Love is supposedly coming back, which would be huge for them. This is in Green Bay, which is going to be on real grass, which I do think will have an effect on the play. But give me the Vikings, man. Their wins are just way too impressive to ignore. Next up, we've got the Steelers taking on the Colts. Both teams are coming off wins. Colts managed to get their first of the season regardless of Anthony Richardson throwing 2 picks and no touchdowns. Richardson seems to make these throws that only he could make, and then he also goes and throws an interception that no one else could throw. The Steelers, on the other hand, they get the job done against the Chargers. They've got to have the best defense in the league. They haven't let anyone score more than 10 points this season yet, which is just crazy. But they also haven't scored over 20 points yet. But I guess it doesn't really matter if you're holding a team to 10 points or less, though. I think the Steelers' defense will be too much for Richardson, so give me the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers lost this one, though, with how this season is going. Next up, we've got the Broncos taking on the Jets. The Jets come off their best win of the season so far. The offense was humming, and so was MetLife Stadium for the first time in a million years. The defense looked great too. The only criticism I have for this game is the connection between Rodgers and Wilson seems forced. Rodgers missed Wilson on multiple out routes. Something that they'll probably want to clean up going into next week. The Broncos also came away with an impressive win over the Bucks, not only holding them to 7 points, but Bo Nix also threw no picks. He is still yet to throw a passing touchdown, but one step at a time. I'm not sure Bo Nix can play that well against the Jets defense though, so give me the Jets winning this one. Next up, we've got the Eagles taking on the Buccaneers. The Eagles come off a last-minute touchdown win against the Saints. Their defensive line looked impressive for the first time this year. That may have had some help with McCoy going down on the first drive of the game. Regardless, they held the Saints to 3 points until the fourth quarter. The offense actually looked good and had many chances to convert. Their turnover machine Hurts just had other ideas. If he can clean up these mistakes, the Eagles will continue to be dangerous. The Eagles come into this week very banged up with 2 O-line injuries and 2 wide receiver injuries, and A.J. Brown is still questionable as well. The Bucs come into this game after playing their worst game of the season, only scoring 7 points and getting carved up by Bo Nix. I expect them to clean up their issues and come back much better. The Bucs' biggest defensive strength is definitely their run defense, and they're going to need it against the Eagles. I think the Eagles come into this matchup too banged up, so give me the Bucs to take this one. Next up, we've got the Bengals taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Bengals' early season struggles continue, being one of 3 teams still without a win. Their defense just couldn't get a stop, even if their life depended on it, letting in 38 points. The offense looked good, it just wasn't able to keep up. The Panthers, on the other hand, come out there, get their first win of the season, a convincing win at that, over the Raiders with the Red Rifle playing like he's the MVP. This wasn't a great sign for Bryce Young, as Dalton made the Panthers look like they could contend for the South with him under center. I do think the Bengals will come fired up, as it's a do-or-die game for them, so give me the Bengals to get their first win of the season. Next up, the Jags take on the Texans. The Jags have been the biggest letdown this year besides the Bengals for me. I was expecting a much better year for Trevor Lawrence, and he just hasn't produced. The offense looks lost, and last week the defense just didn't want to be there. The Texans come off an ass whipping from the Vikings and proved to me just how overrated they are this season. Both of their wins have been by minimal margins and just haven't lived up to their potential yet, but if there's any team to show it off against, it's the Jags. So give me the Texans to win this at home. Alright, next up we've got the Patriots taking on the 49ers. The Patriots come back down to earth after their impressive first 2 games and finally played how I thought they would in week 1. They had no answer on both sides of the ball last week. The only positive for the Pats this week is that they play a very injured 49ers team. The 49ers somehow lose to the Rams after being up 14 and the Rams missing half their team. A very underwhelming start for the 49ers and suffer the injury bug like most other teams. They are going to need Ayuk to start playing football as they come up against a solid defense. But give me the 49ers to win this game, as I need it very badly. Next up, we've got the Browns taking on the Raiders. Both teams coming off a bad loss. The Raiders couldn't contain the Red Rifle and lose to what was the worst team in football for the first 2 weeks. The Raiders somehow beat the Ravens in Baltimore and then go to lose to the Panthers at home. The Browns' O-line issues continue. At this point, I'm thinking they just don't like Watson. The defense also seems to turn off and on depending on the week. I think the defense will be turned on this week though. So give me the Browns in this 50-50. Next up, we've got the Chiefs taking on the Chargers. The Chiefs somehow get the refs again. But if they have the refs, how do you bet against them? Rice looked great this season so far, and so has their defense. The Chargers had an early lead but couldn't convert in the second half and let the game get away from them. I think people have overrated this team and will finally realize after this week. Give me the Chiefs to win this. Next up, the Bills take on the Ravens. The Bills have been the best team in football this year so far, No one has managed to hold them under 30 points this year. The defenses look great. Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level yet again. They haven't really faced a great defense yet, but they will this Sunday. The Ravens notched their first win of the year against the Cowboys. They ran their gameplay perfectly. The defense played great up until the fourth quarter. They will need to play how they did for the first three quarters if they want to slow down this Bills offense. This has got to be the game of the week for me. I'm expecting Lamar to have a massive game here. Give me the Ravens to give the Bills their first loss of the season. Next up, the Titans take on the Dolphins. The Titans continue their loss streak to 3 after failing to stop Malik Willis of all people. Levis continues his generational run of turnover memes. Imagine benching Ryan Tannehill for Will Levis. Only the Titans could do that. The Dolphins are what I expected them to be without Tua, as Skylar Thompson might just be one of the worst backups in the league. If I was the Dolphins, I'd be giving the Rams a call right now, inquiring about Jimmy Garoppolo if they want any chance at this season. This is probably the worst game of the week for me. Give me the Titans, as without Tua, the Dolphins are just nobodies. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans find some way to lose this one too. And lastly, the Seahawks take on the Detroit Lions. The Lions get the job done in Arizona last week with one of the best plays of the week with that lateral to Gibbs. The Lions defense looked great, but their offense is really yet to have a massive impact on the game like I thought they would. I really like them in this matchup though. The Seahawks are another overrated team for me, as they really haven't faced a decent team yet. And two of their wins being extremely close. They did what they should have done against the Dolphins, but the Lions are a whole different story. So give me the Lions to take this one out and show everyone that the Hawks are pretenders. That concludes another week of picks and predictions. Until next time. Bye. Shout out Andy B.